I think, the reason I really wanted to start the foundation was to give young people the space to be supported, to be curious, to find joy. But I think ultimately it's about investing in who they are and who they will potentially be as people in the world and society.
Welcome to the Women on the Move podcast. I'm your host, Sam Saperstein. This season, we're delving into how strong communities create opportunities, foster belonging, and empower leaders to make a lasting impact. We'll hear from senior executives, entrepreneurs, and change makers who are redefining leadership through ambition and innovation, and the values and communities that have shaped their journeys. In each episode, our guests reflect on the life experiences that influenced them early on, the people and communities that lifted them up, and how they now use their platforms to empower others. These leaders are committed to community, purpose, and authenticity. At the Women on the Move podcast, powered by JPM Chase, we believe purpose and community aren't just nice to have, they're essential. We're spotlighting women who are changing industries, creating space for others, and showing what's possible when we lead with integrity and bring others along. We hope to provide you with a new lens through which to consider your own communities and inspire you to create communities that foster success and drive change. Thank you for joining us on this season of the Women on the Move podcast. Let's explore the power of community together. In this episode, I'm thrilled to speak with Misty Copeland, trailblazing ballerina, author, and passionate advocate for equity in the arts. As the first Black woman to be named principal dancer at American Ballet Theater, Misty has redefined what it means to embody the lead role on the world's most prestigious stages. Beyond her artistry, she built a powerful platform dedicated to creating access, representation, and purpose-driven change. Just before the recording of this podcast, it was announced that Misty is retiring from American Ballet Theater after 25 years. In this conversation, Misty shares how her experiences in the world of ballet have shaped her mission to build a broader community around ballet by making the art form more accessible. In the next stage of her career, she'll no doubt continue to inspire through action, innovation, and authenticity. Misty, it is such a pleasure to have you on our Women on the Move podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you recently announced that you are retiring from ballet. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a big chapter.
Yes.
I'm wondering what your reflections are right now as you think about your unbelievable career.
I feel like I've had a lot of time to process this decision. I would say I started thinking about this in 2018.
Wow.
And then, towards the end of 2019, I felt like I was ready to kind of make that next move and step away from classical dance. I don't see this as a retirement in terms of me as a dancer, but it's definitely a farewell to my 25 years with American Ballet Theater.
Yeah.
But in the last 5 years, I really feel like I've already stepped into that next chapter. I've been away from the stage. My last performance with American Ballet Theater was in December of 2019. So, I really feel like I've processed so much in this time. I started my foundation. I started a production company. I had my son. I wrote like 3 or 4 books. Like a lot's happened in the last 5 years. But I feel like I have to kind of step back into that place because so many people who have been supporters of mine are now processing, this news. And so it's like, oh, right. Yes. Okay. Got to get my head back in that space where other people are when I'm, kind of getting flooded with beautiful messages and things like that. And having to reflect again, I think on my journey, which my husband was very emotional with this announcement. And I'm like, you've been here with me this whole time processing the last 5 years. Why are you so emotional? But it's been a long, very fulfilling career that I'm so proud of.
Yeah.
And also just excited to kind of like make room and move over for so many more dancers to come up.
And for other things in your life, too.
And for other things in my life, yes.
I mean, it's interesting you've spent so long processing it. I think that's probably a gift. And maybe the pandemic, even though no one was aware that was coming, might have given you some space for that to step away.
I think the pandemic, as difficult as it was for the world and for the dance community, I think so many dancers had a moment to breathe for the first time in their careers.
Right.
There was a baby boom
Among dancers. Makes sense.
It's so difficult for women, working women in general, to find that window and feel like now is the time. But for dancers and for female athletes, it's really difficult, and you have such a small window to be in your prime, physically. And so the pandemic was really a moment, I think, for so many dancers to kind of step back and reassess what it is they're doing, because you kind of get in this cycle. And
Yeah.
in the moment you step off, you lose that momentum, or you lose the opportunity, or you lose the position. And so it's really difficult for performers to have a moment to reflect and really I think, be present and know what it is they want to do, like, continuing moving
Mm.
forward.
And how are you preparing to get back into it, to get on the stage again?
Oh my goodness, it's been brutal.
Oh,
It's been, so many people have said, "Oh, I thought taking this time off would have been really healing for your body."
right.
It has not
Oh,
been.
no.
It
Oh,
has
no.
not
Your
been.
body got used to one
Oh my
way
gosh,
of
I've
life.
stepped back in and my body's like, not like, not thanking me for taking the time off. And so many of the injuries that I've had throughout my career have come back with a vengeance, and like more have come up. I mean, I'm 42, stepping back into this space.
Goodness.
And, I think it's also like a beautiful, I mean, yes, it's been difficult
Yes.
and brutal, and my body hurts, and I've got new and old injuries, but it's so beautiful to step back into this, not the same body, it's a new body.
Yeah.
And I think that I've done that throughout my career. I mean, you're constantly changing and evolving, and I've switched up my training throughout my 25-year career based on the changes that happen
Mhm.
naturally, as a human being. And so that's like this headspace I'm in, is that this is my new dance body.
Yes.
And I have
Love
to
that.
adjust to what it's capable of and find where the strengths lie and the weaknesses, and kind of adjust and move from there. But I think what's been the most special is that my son can see me
That's a
dance.
beautiful thing.
Right. And
Oh,
so he
and can
doesn't
understand
and
that
can
at
understand
his
that.
age.
Yeah.
It's
He has
amazing.
no idea really what I do. He's been in the studio with me, and he's like stepping on my toes, and I'm like, okay, this isn't gonna work today.
Right. We'll bring it back maybe tomorrow. You are no stranger to injury. You've obviously danced through many serious things
Mhm.
before. I was struck by how you danced through a tibia stress fractures, I
Mhm.
mean, just in 2012, and
Yeah.
were in so much pain doing that, but refused to stop. What was that moment like for you? And what was going through your mind when you're dancing in so much pain, but wanting to go on given the enormity of the moment?
There are so few opportunities in dance, in a company like American Ballet Theater, when you're at the top of your field, and the company is filled with, nearly 100 of the greatest dancers in the world. And so, the opportunity to actually be given a principal role, which I was given in 2012, to do the lead in The Firebird, when, I had been in the company for, I think it was maybe 12 years,
Mhm.
and had never been given that opportunity. And so at that late age, it was a risk they were taking on me, and I had to prove myself. And I knew that if I didn't take that opportunity and to the fullest, that I would never be given it again.
Oh my
So when I started feeling that pain in my shin, I didn't tell anyone in the company, because I knew they would say, "Well, we don't want you to
goodness.
break, so you're gonna have to step out of rehearsals." And then I knew I would never get on stage, and I understood the significance of being given that opportunity, and that it was so much deeper and so much bigger than me,
Mm.
to be the first Black woman to perform that role at ABT,
Yes.
and to possibly then be on this trajectory to be promoted to principal dancer. So I did everything I could in terms of taking care of my body with people outside of the company, paying out of pocket. I mean, it was a commitment. And but again, I knew that I had to make it to that performance. I ended up doing, I think, a performance or two in California before I made my New York debut in the role. And then I only performed it once before my doctor said,
You really
It's
had to
time.
stop.
It's
That is an
time to step
impossible
down."
choice.
But what it meant, there was so much work that was done with me and my manager, Gilda Squire, at the time, a Black woman who understood the journey that I was on,
Mm.
and the commitment and what we wanted to do for the Black and brown community. And so we were there. I was speaking at public schools, and I was in Brooklyn, and I was in Queens, and I was in all of these places, really showing them, like, this could be you.
Yes.
Whatever it is you choose to do, I come from this, and just for them to see themselves in me. And so we did so much work and really, like, grassroots. So by the time the performance came, and I saw this image of myself as the Firebird hanging over the Metropolitan Opera House at Lincoln Center, to see this, I just remember bawling my eyes out, because it was like I saw a Black woman with, like, boobs and butt and just arched in the wind, and I was like, yes, like, this is means so much to so many people that walk past Lincoln Center daily and don't feel like they see themselves reflected, and don't feel like they can be in that space. And so on that night, to see the audience, a sold out show with young and old and Black and brown, it was the first time that we saw that, and so it was worth it. I didn't feel the pain when I was on stage,
Thankfully.
because the adrenaline, and
Yeah.
I remember just the audience was so loud I couldn't even hear the orchestra, and it was like a party in the house. So I was like, it does not matter what I do on stage tonight,
The
and I
fact that
don't.
you were
Yeah,
there,
the fact that and I
everything.
don't think it was a very good performance, but it was like what it meant to get those people in that community
Oh my
in
goodness.
the
Like,
room. Yeah.
I can sort of feel that power in the way you describe it, and just can imagine the moment where you made that decision, and no matter the pain, and thankfully it didn't have such long-term consequences that you couldn't
Right.
dance after that, but that was a big trade-off
Yes.
to make. Oh my goodness. So you stepped into ballet at the relatively old age of 13, unbelievable, and you've said, "I've needed to dance. I didn't need the other stuff that comes with it."
Hmm.
But that dance itself, the movement, was so powerful to you at that particular time. Can you just tell our audience why, why dance and ballet particularly, because you were also doing gymnastics before that, why that movement and structure and discipline was so important to you?
Well, I had never done anything before. I mean, I wasn't doing gymnastics. I had taught myself things, and, like, I'd never taken any formal lessons of any kind. I wasn't involved in sports. I'd never taken a dance class or anything. But I remember falling in love with gymnastics from watching the Olympics. And I remember there was this Lifetime movie on the gymnast Nadia Comaneci. And I was like,
Legend.
just so in awe of the commitment, and to see someone so young and so passionate about something. And it was like, I've never experienced that in my life. Like, I wonder what that feels like. And so I ended up just, like, in my mind, I think that, like, the floor exercises in gymnastics, that was the closest thing I'd ever seen to classical dance. And I think that's why I was drawn to it. This kind of more lyrical movement, when they were dancing in between,
Right.
doing the tricks,
Yes,
the
yes,
flips and the pirouettes and everything. And so I started to teach myself, like, to do backbend walkovers and to do the splits. And so that was, like, the extent of my experience. But I think I was craving a discipline. I was craving structure. I was craving joy and beauty and some kind of escape in my life. I grew up, in really underprivileged, situations and communities. And my mom was a single parent raising 6 children on her own. And we were constantly moving, um, you know, not often knowing where we were going to end up from day to day. And so much of my existence felt like a secret,
Mm.
in this kind of shameful secret, that I didn't want people to know that we were in and out of motels and pretty much houseless. And so I just distanced myself from everyone. I was very introverted and very shy. I mean, I would spend recess or lunch breaks, like, wandering around the school or in the bathroom or in the library with teachers, where I just felt more comfortable.
Yeah.
And so when I kind of found this passion for movement, whenever there was music playing around the house, or seeing my mother was a professional cheerleader for the Kansas City Chiefs football team. And so she was dancing around the house here and there. And so that I was drawn to the joy that I felt, and this expression that I'd never been able to experience. And I barely spoke. So I was writing, I was journaling, and then I was moving. And those were my like forms of expression. So by the time I was 12 and a half, turning 13, I decided to audition for the dance team. And that was really my introduction to movement and to dance. And I say it often, but it saved my life in so many ways. Even if it was just this kind of internal feeling of hope and some sense of responsibility for myself. But there's so many incredible attributes that, being a part of a discipline, being a part of an art form, being part of a sport can do for a young person. I think something as simple as having a space that I could consistently go to every day and know what to expect, which my life was, there was, you know, I never knew what was going to happen. And I had no control over anything in my life. And so to know that I could come into a studio and it was very safe and quiet and I was responsible for my own body,
Yes.
that was incredible. And I think it's I think the opposite with a lot of children. I'm not going to say all because so many people find beauty in the structure of dance and ballet in particular. But I think a lot of people come into dance and they feel that you're tensed up because there's this need to be perfect and kind of this strict idea of how it's taught that's not always very nurturing. And I was fortunate to be in an environment that was very nurturing, where I could fully just fall in love with the art form. And again, that structure and discipline.
That's incredible. So many things lined up for you at their precise moment. I think including the people in your life who were helping you through. When you think back on some role models or supporters and what they did to you and did for you and meant to you at the time, can you think of one or two who just really were there at the right time for you
I
in
have
life?
way too many to name here. Like, there's way more than like five. But I mean, of course, Elizabeth Cantine, I would say, was one of the first. She was a teacher at my middle school. She was teaching, I think, like history and English, and she ended up taking over the drill team as the coach.
Yeah.
She had danced her whole life, but then was also teaching at a public school, and she's the one who made me captain of the team when I had no dance experience. I mean, I decided to audition for captain, but I was shocked when she actually made me captain.
That was great.
When I'm going up against all of these girls who been in dance classes and all of this experience, but she saw something in me beyond being in the drill team. I think within the first week, she said, "You've got a lot of potential. I want to introduce you to a ballet teacher." And that was when I was introduced to Cynthia Bradley,
Yeah.
who was my first ballet teacher. And both of these women are still very much a part of my life. I was texting with Cindy today, and she's always so emotional just about everything, that's happening in my life. And that, such a critical decision that was made, like for her to see the talent, but not just see it and say, I'll teach her, and if something happens, it happens, but to fully invest in me and nurture me and give me opportunity. I mean, she moved me in with her and her family, and she was newly married. She had a 3-year-old son, and she invited me to come live with her because she knew that had she not done that, there's no way I would have lasted.
Yeah.
That was not the focus for my mother. She had other children that she needed to keep food on the table for. She had 2 jobs. There were so many other things that were priority.
Wow.
And so those 2 women, I think, have been huge impacts in my life, and also set up the way that I look at the necessity of mentorship in my life.
Yes.
They set the standards high. Victoria Rowell came into my life at a young age. She was a television actress. She's a producer, director now. And just she danced. She was with American Ballet Theater in their junior company, and she's biracial like I am. And just to see someone and talk to someone who looks like you and who's had similar experiences did so much for me. I think I was like 19 or 20 when I met her, and then the mentors just kept coming. I mean, Prince was a huge, mentor in my life in my mid to late 20s. Susan Failshill, who sits on the board of American Ballet Theater. She's a writer, producer as well. But I've been so fortunate to have incredible people that have come into my life and seen the possibilities with me and really nurtured me. And so I understand the purpose, like,
Yes.
of having those relationships, but also to be a mentor
Yes.
myself at this point, like the purpose of that.
So we have so many other things we can talk about with your dancing career, but since you're entering this next chapter and you have a foundation now, and I want to keep on this notion of mentoring and really supporting other people. Your Be Bold Foundation is really
Mhm.
designed to do that. And I would just love for you to just pause and say, why was it so important for you to set this foundation, which is about dance and movement,
Mhm.
given all the people who helped you and saw this potential in you? What do you hope it does for potential in other children that you come
Mhm.
across?
I think the reason I really wanted to start the foundation was to give young people this space, to be supported, to grow, to be curious, to find joy. But I think ultimately it's about investing in who they are and who they will potentially be as people in the world, in society. I think that's something that I'm thinking about a lot, especially in this political climate.
Yeah.
How are we creating f- leaders? How are we giving them the tools to reach their fullest potential, no matter where they come from? And feel wholeheartedly that that's what ballet did for me. Beyond the accolades and my career at American Ballet Theater and what I've accomplished, the person that I've become from that 13-year-old girl is mind blowing. The growth that's happened, and so I know that by being exposed to a discipline and an art form is what made me that person. And so, in creating the Misty Copeland Foundation and our signature program being Be Bold, Be Bold stands for Ballet Explorations. Ballet offers leadership
Yeah.
development. So this is not about creating a pipeline into a professional school to potentially become a professional dancer. Like that would be amazing, and
Mhm.
we want to set them up and give them great training and technique to if that's the path they want to take. But it's really again about exposing them to this opportunity, live music, incredible teaching artists who look like them, who a lot of them come from their communities that they're in. So we're teaching, it's an free after school ballet class, and it's in the Bronx and in Harlem. We would love to grow and become, more national and international. That would be fantastic. But right now we're really focused on these communities that need the arts and that need after school programming for these children. So it's like a lifelong dream of mine. I never thought I would find the fulfillment that I have had my whole career, that I have on stage and performing and in the studio, and I have that by
That is
doing
remarkable.
this work. It's incredible.
I love that. I mean, I'm very struck by the combination of dance and music and how you
Mhm.
talk about that being very integrated. But I love what the program emphasizes. So, these traits: leadership, curiosity, kindness, persistence, and then, of course, appreciation of dance and music.
Mhm.
When you have children in this program, what do you hope they take away from it, given your focus on those values?
Mhm. Ugh. It's so hard to say what I hope they would take away because I had hopes for what this program would look like, and that, they would come away poised and have more of an interest in it, and to see it go far beyond those things already. It's only been 3 years since the
Sure.
program has been up and running, and to
Mm.
see young people come away with different interests that you wouldn't even imagine, like more in reading, like, just
Mm.
expanding their minds in how this kind of translates into other areas of their life.
Mm.
But even just as, you know, this escape, from whatever their lives may be, building community, the friendships that they're building. And we really push them to use their voices because that's something that's not often a part of the classical ballet experience. Usually it's like you don't have an opinion, you don't use your words,
Mm.
you're told what to do. And so to me it's so counterintuitive as to like what is expected of you when you're
Yeah.
supposed to be an artist and go on stage. And so it's like, well, how and when are you building that artistry if
Mm.
everything's kind of being pushed down? And so we really encourage the young people in the classroom to voice their feelings and experience, and that it's
Beautiful.
really a full body
I
experience.
love that. You were not shy in using your voice too. At times when you felt that you were part of institutions that did not see people of color, dancers of color, didn't make space for them. Did you have to get yourself to a certain point to feel bold and confident to do that?
Mhm.
And if so, what was that point where you thought, I know who I am now. I've proven who I can be. I know I have all the intrinsics. It's now time for me to use that voice.
I think it's something that's always been in me.
Mm.
And I really credit my mother for this. I've had so many conversations, just like now that I'm raising, a son and he's Black and in this world and what that means. And, I feel good about the way my mother kind of set us up. Maybe there was some fear in there with it, but, I remember being very young and her saying like, yes, you guys are biracial. But as soon as you step out of this house, and especially in like, the areas that you're growing up, like, you're going to be seen as Black and you're going to be treated as Black people in this world and to be prepared for that. And I think that having that mindset, it was such a big part of my identity that coming into the ballet world and being the only, it was such a part of me that needed to be acknowledged. And I needed to voice my experiences of being the only and what that meant. And so I think for me, it was really about how do I navigate using my voice and expressing. That took time, but not the feeling that I had that like I was going to speak at some point. It was just a matter of how do I go about this? And I think that my personality, I've always been someone to kind of sit back and observe and learn how situations work or people's personalities before I take that leap.
Yeah.
And of course, having mentors in my life as well that I was having these conversations with, and they were preparing me,
That's incredible.
To have the conversations. But they really started, behind the walls of American Ballet Theater. These weren't public conversations. I was having conversations early on with the artistic director of ABT at the time, and even my colleagues. And then I think, it just naturally, when I was kind of put out there more in the public, it was a natural part of what I needed to talk about because those were my experiences.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. You would talk to the choreographers about movement for certain bodies or costumes or how you'd powder your face. I mean, there's so many ways that I don't think many people, unless you're living it, realize that this comes out in so many ways. Did you have to pick certain areas to focus on? Did you just take like any opportunity you could at a certain point to kind of raise your concerns?
It was a combination of
Yeah.
things. I mean, when it came to, I guess for the most part, it was probably casting. Those were really like thought out conversations, that I was thinking about in approaching the company. I didn't want to come from this place of anger, being defensive, and I'd had the opportunity of watching so many Black men, not women, because I was the only Black woman in the company for the first 10 years of my career, but Black men that had come and gone and watched how they were navigating. And a lot of it was like, I'm not going to do that.
Wow.
But it's really difficult to be the only or one of the only. And a lot of those emotions can come out in anger or come out in just over emotional. And, I learned a lot from watching how other people responded. And so I wanted to make sure that I had kind of gotten all of that out before I stepped into a room with, I was like 21, 22 years old.
Very young.
Yeah, very young with like no life experience really. And coming in and trying to have these really difficult conversations. And, but, so I was having those conversations and just saying like, this is my experience. And I feel like I'm not being cast because there's never been a Black woman to do this role. And maybe you see Black women only in this narrow way.
Right.
And I think, I can do this role, or what is it that I need to do to prepare to be able to be seen, as this role is a possibility for me. But when it comes to, some of them were, like you said, it was kind of like, this is just the time, this is what's happening, I'm going to say something.
Yeah,
When it came to a lot of the, makeup and things like that, that it just kind of happened organically when I was, being told to color my skin a lighter color so that I could blend in with the rest of the girls in the corps de ballet.
Wow.
that it was like more of an immediate, like, I have to say something now in this moment.
Did you feel that any of those conversations changed minds then and there, whether it was the folks who were staffing or your dancing colleagues, other
Oh, yeah,
dancers?
absolutely.
What
I
did
mean,
people say to you afterwards, like, or over the years? Did they thank you for having those conversations?
um, I mostly have gotten thank yous from people that have the same experiences
Mm,
more so than, people that it was kind of like an education for them. I mean, I remember having the conversations with some of the makeup artists who had been doing makeup in the company for like 30, 40 years
wow.
and just saying like, "Well, why does it have to be this way?" And then them saying, "It doesn't. Okay, let's do something else." And I'm like, "What? Was that
That's all it
easy?"
right.
Oh, what? I mean, I'm sure that, there are other, uh, like, roles that maybe they wouldn't have been so flexible on, but I
Mhm.
mean, but that I voiced what, I was thinking and like, "Well, why can't we do this color or this way? Like, why does it have to be done this way?" And then to have it be so easily, like, kind of dismissed, I was like, "Oh, that okay, well, I'm gonna keep
So
doing
yeah,
this.
exactly,
I'm
exactly.
gonna keep, speaking up and using my voice." But
Mhm.
when it comes to my colleagues, I think something that I often say to a lot of the young Black and brown kids that I speak to is that, you know, we have so much more in common with people who are different from us. And I think that it's important to kind of build this base. Like for me, like I really, like my colleagues got to know me. I mean, we're like a family. Again, I've been in the company for 25
Yes,
years. You
yes.
grow up with these people, you travel the world with them. And so people got to know me for, "Oh, you're Misty. I don't see you as like the only Black woman in the company," or whatever it was. So I think it was like a little easier for me to have
Mm,
some difficult conversations with them when I'd built real relationships and friendships
yeah.
with people and had to like check people a lot,
Mm,
and they would say things that they didn't recognize or see as hurtful or racist or whatever it might be, and I'd have to call them out in the moment, like, "It's coming from a place of love, but, like, this is not okay," and, like,
right.
them kind of saying, "Oh, I didn't realize that," but
Mm,
I feel so grateful for all the relationships that I built and being able to have those uncomfortable
yeah.
conversations and have it be not as these are conversations that are easier to have nowadays that were not, 10, 15 years ago, and I'm
Well,
grateful for that.
it's really a tribute to your willingness to do that, and you're put in a situation where as the only maybe not given a choice, so it's a
Mhm.
testament to you. You know, where you are given a choice is to tell stories, and so as an author, a very prolific author, you've really chosen to use that part of your platform, I think, in such a beautiful way for children, for adults. Want to talk about some of the things you've written. So, Firebird, you wrote almost like a letter to your younger self,
Mhm.
which I guess I can really see you wishing you had something like that when you were
Yeah.
younger. So talk about the response to that book and how you think other dancers coming up kind of perceived it, your experiences now, what that meant to them.
Mhm. The idea for Firebird really came out of my relationship with one of my mentors,
Mm.
Raven Wilkinson, Christopher Myers, who I wrote the book with, and he did, the beautiful illustrations. I met him and he was like, "I want to come up with this concept together. So I just want to like follow you around in your life." I was
Mm.
like, "Okay." I'd never written a book before. I was like, "Is this how it goes? I don't know." So he would watch rehearsals. He came to a performance, and then he'd go to like he's like, "Well, what are you doing today?" I was like, "Oh, I'm having lunch with one of my friends. She's a mentor of mine, and she used to be a ballerina in the '50s. She was the only Black woman in her company like back then." And he was like, "Oh, can I come?" And I was like, "Okay." And so he saw this relationship, and he was like, "This is it."
Oh my goodness.
The power in having someone with, like, generations between you
Mhm.
and that you're, like, speaking this beautiful language, like, the same language together, and you're
Mm.
supporting each other, and so that was where the story really developed from, like, the importance of having that type of relationship and what it can do for a young person when you're having doubts and feeling insecure. You don't maybe see people immediately around you who look like you. And so that book has just continued to like pay it forward and with so many generations, and it's really incredible, after the career that I've had, to meet young people who don't know me as a performer because they've never seen me dance on
Only as an
stage,
author.
but as an author
It's great.
is really
It's a whole other identity. which you can certainly lean into now in your second chapter even more. But isn't that fascinating? You obviously have come up and dancing was everything.
Yeah.
So I love that. That's amazing. You've also written about other trailblazing women, Black ballerinas, as another book. And talk to me about the process of doing that. You were learning and finding other information about dancers that just wasn't really out there in the public eye.
It was so important for me to write a book like this. I've said so often that you open up a ballet history book and you do not see faces like mine. You don't see our stories documented in those books. And so I've always felt like I want to start writing our history books and kind of going back and telling the stories of those who don't get their due because their stories aren't out there.
Yeah.
And I knew that these weren't stories I could just Google and learn about these people. So it was a lot of word of mouth and just like reaching out to certain people and like hearing stories from them. And that kind of helped me to shape, what the book would look like. I mean, it was really difficult to choose. I think we chose 27 maybe dancers in that book. And it was so hard to just choose that.
I'm glad to hear there's
many.
more, many more.
There's many more.
But to find oral histories and that being so important to the story is amazing. I think it's almost a lost art now, right? Because we can Google everything and find information. But those stories must have been so rich.
Incredible. I mean, and that's what's one of the things I love about ballet as well is that so much of it is oral history that's passed down from dancer to dancer. When you're learning ballets, we have like dance notation that's rarely used, but other than like that, it's really just documented from like, choreography that's passed on is literally from person to person. And so it felt so fitting for this book that's how I would be receiving this history.
Almost to another dancer down the road, right? That you're going to convey that to. I think that's really beautiful. And Bunheads, so this is a book for children, and your second one will come out in the fall. What did you want to show younger children about when it came to this book?
It was really about showing the beauty in community. When you commit to something, whatever it is, extracurricular, sport, or art, it's really based on me as a young dancer, like coming into a studio with just these misfit characters that come from different cultures and different life experiences, have different body types. They're all different ages. And so it's just this like motley crew of ballet dancers that and they're all like they're actual people that I grew up with. And like the little girl Kat in the second book that's coming out will be really based on her experience. And but it's giving young people an opportunity to see themselves through all of these different characters, and that I wanted to value their different cultures. So we celebrate Catalina being Mexican, and you get to see like the home she grew up in, and then how she's taking bits of her culture and applying it to the character of Kitri in the Spanish ballet Don Quixote. So you get to learn about, kind of dive into a different ballet with each book. So this is a series, and the first one, little Misty was the star of that book, and the ballet Coppelia, and then the second book will be Catalina, and we'll have the different characters in each book that you'll get to learn about a different ballet.
Great. I think right now it's more important than ever to have these stories out there. It's been, I think, more challenging in this environment to appreciate people's differences and to make sure everybody still feels heard and valued for that. And I think the way to get through it is to keep having folks like you use your platform, keep showing people it's okay, show that perseverance, and build that community. So whether it's through storytelling, your foundation, really, or any of your new pursuits, it really comes through. And I think it is vital right now.
Yes, it is.
So thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much for saying that. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's so, I think, critical even more now, that I'm doing this work through my foundation and continuing to give Black and brown children, immigrant children, a space to feel safe and to feel seen and to be able to feel like they're still living. And that's what the art form has done for me my whole life.
When I think of all the Misty Copelands out there that we have yet to discover, that's the motivator. So I just want to say thank you for that. So as you wrap up this current stage, your dancing stage, What do you plan to do next? What are the next stages we will see you on? What will you be doing?
Mhm. I like that you use that word stages because there will be many more stages that I will be on and entering into different stages and, I will continue traveling and speaking and writing books, and, my work through the foundation and the production company, but it's all with the same goal in mind. It's really to bring dance to as many people as possible, to show the diversity in it and the importance of seeing different types of people and that everyone should be able to be a part of this experience. I would love to continue dancing in some capacity. It won't be a full-length ballet. It won't be Swan Lake again. I don't think I'll ever do that ballet again. But to be on stage and moving, whether I'm producing a show or something more geared towards Broadway, I'm very open to what's to come. I try not to plan too much.
Which is funny to actually hear you say that, given you had to be so disciplined in planning.
No, I think that when it comes to, for me, like what I've done uh, outside of classical ballet, it's really felt like natural and organic and
Mhm.
spoke to like what I was feeling in those moments.
Yeah.
My work with Prince, I remember it being really um, feeling like his audience, it would be amazing to be able to show this audience that maybe doesn't have interest in this art form, or maybe they've never seen classical ballet, but how can we expose as many people as possible to it? So I think in situations like that that feel natural and
Yeah.
organic, I will step into.
I'm curious now that you don't have to have the same rigid structure. How do your days flow?
I have to have structure. I think that's what drew me to ballet, but it's
You still have
definitely
structure.
I still have structure. It taught me ballet taught me structure.
Yeah.
But I definitely have allowed myself to kind of not be as rigid.
Mm.
I literally was having the conversation this morning with my husband. I dove back into training and my body's like, "What are you doing? This is too much." And so it's kind of like I have to step back and I can't step into things the way that I've done them my whole career. I'm in a different body. I have different priorities and I want to enjoy this time.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like, oh, just because I'm back in training mode, I have to be like sad and focused and hurt and
Right. No, none of those
that
things.
it can be a joyful experience. So
Do you let yourself think about when you go back and perform, how are you going to feel? Do you imagine yourself there on the stage again?
I do, I do. And so many people are like, "Oh, you're going to be so emotional and all of these things," but I just think I'm going to have fun.
Oh,
I don't really have like big expectations. I just want to enjoy myself and not get hurt.
yes.
I
Fair
think
enough.
that's the number one goal.
So if you were to say one thing to our listeners as a legacy and what you
Mm.
want your legacy to be, what do you think that is?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I feel like so much of what I want to leave people with is, the beauty and the power of dance and movement and the importance of having that in our lives, no matter what age you are, where you come from. But I think also the importance of storytelling, so much that what we've been talking about, the importance of carrying on the stories of, people from the past and not diminishing, um, you know, the value of people once you reach a certain age,
Mm.
that they're even more valuable.
Yes, the wisdom.
The wisdom, the life experiences, all they have to give, that has been such an important part of my journey. And I hope that that's what I leave behind, the importance of legacy and lifting up others in community.
Well, Missy, when I think about your legacy, I think about courage, perseverance, strength, just beauty, and unbelievable grace. So thank you so much for speaking with us.
No.
And we wish you the best in your next chapter, dancing and otherwise. So
Thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you for listening to my conversation with Misty Copeland. What Misty has built goes far beyond the stage. It's a movement grounded in purpose, courage, and change. Her work shows us what's possible when we commit to being both excellent and inclusive. I hope my conversation with Misty inspires you to use your voice and create opportunities for others along your chosen path. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to it on your favorite podcast platform.